Resident Evil 2 Original, I would probably put in either high good or low great. It was very good. Or, yeah, it was pretty damn good. But I disagree with, like, all the people saying it's the best game in the entire franchise ever. It's, like, 1,000 times better than 1. Because 1 only goes slightly below that for me, by the way. I liked it. I liked the change of setting and whatever, but by and large, it was basically the same game. It was good. It improved on some things. It had some interesting environments, I guess, with the police station and whatever. But I don't know. I don't think it's like that incredible masterpiece that everyone makes it out to be. And with 1, I love the voice acting, unironically. It's just it's so bad. I love it. I love the setting with the mansion. Super interesting. I love these, like, confined settings. And it's a classic survival horror game. What's not to like? Wait, where's Resident Evil 3? Might as well put that one. Where is Resident Evil? Oh, there. Right here. I would put it between the 2, maybe even below or between the 2. No, I do think that 2 and 3 had some quality of life improvements compared to 1. They're just not that crazy much better, you know? So 3 original also goes between the 2. It was also still pretty damn good. But also not like this incredible masterpiece or whatever. Resident Evil 2 Remake? Masterpiece. This shit was incredible, especially back when it came out. This was pretty much unheard of. Also, fun fact, there is this game called Daymare 1998, which I also played on stream, by the way. And that originally started as, because let me show you quickly, that you can see is pretty inspired by Resident Evil 2 Remake. Because it actually originally started as a third-person fan remake of Resident Evil 2 that Capcom then shut down because, well, they were kind of working on their own remake. So the developers took what they had and turned it into its own game. It's not that great, to be honest. Anyway, just like a little fun fact. Yeah, I don't know what to say. Like, this brought horror back, I feel like. Like, which horror games did we have at the time? Like, this was like 2018, right? Which big horror games did we have at the time? It feels like this was the return to actually scary, like, AAA horror games. And I have nothing but respect for that. I replayed it 2022, like 2 years ago, and it's still incredible. I have 40 hours in that thing. Like, I played both campaigns like twice. So, here, latest achievement, witness the true ending. Resident Evil 3 Remake is okay. Look, Resident Evil 3 Original already felt shorter than 1 and 2, in a way. It already felt like something was missing there. And then 3 Remake even cut out significant portions of that. It is incredibly linear. It has like maybe 1 or 2 like sections where you can somewhat openly like walk around and explore, but for the most part it's incredibly linear. It just feels like a corridor, and like it feels like half of that thing is just like cutscenes or like linear just chase sequences, and then half of the rest is extremely linear, and then like the other half, so like 25%, are somewhat open. And it's also missing a lot of content compared to Resident Evil 3 Remake. Like, I played 2 and 3 both on stream. I think my first playthrough of 2 was like, I don't know, like, what, 12 hours or so? Whereas with 3 it was... How the fuck do I have 18 hours and 19 hours in that thing? I don't even know. No, I think Did I have a screenshot? No. I think my first playthrough, and it was on stream, took me like 6 hours or so. It was so fucking short. 4 Original... Is the VR version of 4 in here too? No. 4 Original is great. It is a milestone. Sadly, the controls just don't hold up very well. Otherwise, it would be a masterpiece. But it also has tank controls, sadly. I don't know why they decided to go with tank controls, but then again, it was really the first game of its kind, right? This game basically invented third-person shooters. So, you know, all those games you love, like fucking, I don't know, Gears of War, like fucking, what else is there? What third-person shooters are there? Like, those wouldn't exist, Dead Space, whatever, those wouldn't exist in the way they do now without the original Resident Evil 4. So nothing but respect for that, but sadly the tank controls do hold it back from a modern perspective, because it is a 3D, third-person shooter, but it has tank controls. It just feels wrong. But other than that, it's still an incredible game. I played through it on stream. It's also a pretty long game. But somehow, the remake is even longer. I don't even know how they did that. It cut out some of the content, while somehow being incredibly faithful to the original. I mean, much like Resident Evil 2. And while at the same time being very faithful to the original. Which, in a way, to me personally, makes Resident Evil 4 Remake more similar to Resident Evil 1 Remake. Back here. Let's do this one next. To Resident Evil 1 Remake than it is to 2 or 3 remakes. Because 2 or 3 remakes, yes, they are in some ways faithful to the originals, especially environments and stuff. Story, of course. But the gameplay is completely different. Whereas with 1 and 4 Remake, gameplay is basically the same. And these are just updated and expanded versions of the original. Whereas 2 and 3 are like totally different. Which is interesting to think about. But yeah, 4, absolute masterpiece. I have no idea how they pulled it off, but they did it. And honestly, I'm excited for 5 Remake. Because I'm not a fan of 5. I find it, I guess, okay at best. And if they do as great of a job as with 4, I am all for I'm all for it. Or they go the Resident Evil 3 Remake approach and just rush it. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah, with 5, I also don't understand why that shit still had tank controls. Bro, it was like 2008 or so at that point. Chill out. But yeah, Resident Evil 1 Remake is great. I also even prefer it over Resident Evil 4 Original. Because it is literally just the first game, but improved in every single way. In some ways, it just has a different vibe, because the first one, the original game, had a very trashy vibe that also was fun in its own way, but it was very trashy, whereas the remake was much more serious and grounded. But the remake also expanded on so much. It changed up the entire layouts of basically all the areas, making you approach all the areas in such different ways that it feels like a completely new game almost. Like, you could literally play Resident Evil 1 and 1 Remake, much like Silent Hill 2 and Silent Hill 2 Remake. You could play them both and have fundamentally different experiences simply because you go through the areas in completely different orders. The story was changed up in some ways, or like, not changed up, but like expanded upon in some ways. There are more areas. It's just overall, they did their best to improve on the original in every way they could. But ended up creating a very different experience in the process. Because with 4, you can play either one of them and have largely the same experience. It is basically the same game, just like a very updated version of that. Whereas with 1, even though it looks like gameplay-wise is the same, it's a very different experience. 7... Do I put it above or below 4? I'll be generous and put it above, simply because it's more replayable in my opinion. But I already said my piece about 7. Incredible first half. If it was just the Baker House, or if the second half was on the level of the Baker House, it would be a 10 out of 10 game for me. But sadly it isn't. Sadly, the second half is much weaker. I don't know, I would give the ship segment like maybe like a 6 out of 10. So overall, maybe like an 8. So yeah. Such a shame though, because like, for example, with Resident Evil 1 and 4, or 1 Remake and 4, or honestly all of these, they are very consistently good or bad or mid. Whereas with 7 it has an incredibly strong start, first half, and an incredibly like fine second half. And it's such a shame that the quality is so different between the two, in my opinion. I played Resident Evil 1 when it came out. The dogs scared me, never played it again. The dogs is such an iconic moment, though. The first Resident Evil is also incredibly iconic. Like the fucking the fucking mansion. Are you kidding me? Name a more iconic set piece in all of Resident Evil than the mansion. Maybe arguably Resident Evil 2's police station, but also like all the main like interior locations of all the games have been inspired by the mansion in a way. Resident Evil 1 setting was goated, absolutely. Even in Resident Evil Village, when you enter the castle and like the entrance hall, like when you reach the actual entrance, like the entrance hall, even that looks like almost like a remake of the mansion entrance, like with the stairs on the side and whatever. Like, every single Resident Evil game has at least one building that is in some way inspired by the mansion. Even down to the fucking police station. And that speaks volumes about this game's influence on, well, the franchise, but in a way also gaming as a whole. Village, by the way, I think I would put it here. Not sure if I like it more or less than one remake. I've definitely played it more recently and also more often. So I will just give it the benefit of the doubt. Incredibly fun game, but sadly very light on the horror. There is, of course, the Benviento house, the doll house, which is insanely scary. And if we count the DLC, you know, that also had some insanely scary parts, but I also overall didn't like the DLC very much, so let's not count it, because otherwise this would drop down. So yeah, we have the dollhouse, which wasn't insanely scary, but the entire rest of the game is more action focused, and especially like the Chris section later on in the game is literally just like shoot like infinite ammo at all of these enemies. I don't know, that was a little bit of a shame, that disappointed me. Apparently it's because people found Resident Evil 7 too scary, so they toned it down a little, and it's a huge shame. If they kept the tone of the castle, of the Dimitrescu castle, or the dollhouse, like, you know, these two tones, if they stuck to those two, it would have been amazing. But then you also have like the third area with the fish and stuff, and it was still fun, but it wasn't very scary or very challenging, you know, puzzle wise. And the last area, which was basically just action more or less, which again, the game is still incredibly fun, and it is incredible. It is incredibly fun. It is a really, really damn good game, and I guess of the main entries, my favorite one, because these two are remakes. But it could have been even better. It was a bit disappointing just how light it is on the horror. Code Veronica, apparently the Dreamcast and PS2 versions are different, slightly different. One being called Code Veronica, the other one being called Code Veronica X. Apparently there were like some story alterations, and I've only played the X version, which is apparently the inferior one. Oh, but I don't know, I still liked it. I liked it a lot. It is actually probably my favorite classic Resident Evil. So it would either go here or here. Not quite sure though. I did love the one remake. So I'll put it here. But it's somewhere around here. Code Veronica is goated. And it's such a shame, because Code Veronica is largely regarded by many hardcore fans as the true third part, the true third game, and it is an important part of the story, including some important characters from the first games, whereas Resident Evil 3 mostly had original characters. So in a way, Code Veronica feels more like a sequel, and also had a very different setting. Like, one had the mansion, two had the city in a way, mainly the police station, but also a bit in the city. Then Code Veronica took us somewhere else entirely, whereas 3 almost felt like an expanded, like, add-on to 2. It also had the city setting, it had all new characters, you know, it almost felt like an add-on, whereas Code Veronica almost felt like the true third game. You know, again, with characters from the first games returning and a completely new setting. And a really interesting one as well. That's also a thing I love about the Resident Evil games, is that all of them have a very interesting and memorable setting. All except one, and I'll get to that. Like, the first one has the mansion, of course, the second one has the police station, 3 has the city itself, 4, where is it? 4 has the village, 5 has, obviously, the African cities, 6... What memorable set piece does 6 have? I guess also a city, but a very lived-in city. I remember that. 7, of course, the Baker House, village, the entire town, and especially the Dimitrescu Castle with Mommy. Code Veronica with Alaska, I think, or Antarctica, I'm not sure, like one of those. Revelations with the ship, and so on. 0 with the train. And I like that. As opposed to a city that is not lived in. Well, Resident Evil 2 and 3 had Raccoon City, which was swarmed by zombies. And then nuked at the end of 3. Whereas Resident Evil 6, the city was still, as far as I remember, it's been way too long, but as far as I remember, the city was still very much alive. Oh yeah, and Code Veronica was also insanely long. It felt much longer than the first 3 games. It took me like, what, 12 hours or so to get through this one? That was very, very long. It almost feels like 2 games in one. Because it has 2 very different settings. One being like this military base almost, or something like that, and the other one being fucking Antarctica, where they fly to with a plane. It almost felt like 2 different games stuffed in one. Like 2 shorter games making for one overall very long game. And I don't know, it just has a lot of content to offer, and a lot of story, I guess, interesting settings. Such a shame that they didn't remake this. Such a shame that they jumped to 4 after 3. Or to 3 after 2, I guess, I don't know. Such a shame. Would have loved to see a Code Veronica remake, but I guess that's not happening. Also would have loved to see a 0 remake. Dead Aim, I haven't played. Gaiden, I have played, but I'm... Operation Raccoon City not played. Outbreak 1 and 2 I have yet to play. Resistance... It wasn't as horrible as people are saying, in my opinion, but it also wasn't great at all. This one, I don't even know what this is, honestly. Revelations was good. I'll probably put it here. It was like good. It was fine. It was originally a 3DS game that then got ported to PC, and it's very obviously like a ported handheld game, so it's not amazing. Environments are pretty small, but it has a very interesting setting with the ship. I find the ship lends itself very well as a survival horror setting. But then it doesn't commit to it. It has like 3 or 4 different storylines, and only one of them takes place on the ship. And the other ones are just less interesting, and one of them I just didn't like at all. So overall it's fine, but it just wastes too much time on stuff I didn't like. And it also feels very much like a ported, 3DS game. Let's put it like this. It feels very limited. Which doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it feels much more limited than the other ones. Survivor 2, Survivor not played, Umbrella Chronicles, I think, Mercenaries. Oh no, this is Umbrella Chronicles. Oh, Dark Side Chronicles. I haven't played any of these. Okay, Resident Evil 0. I would honestly put in great. Did I like it more? Did I like it more or less than Resident Evil 4? Honestly, I might be giving Resident Evil 4 Original 2 little credit simply because the remake is just that incredible. So I will give it the benefit of the doubt and put 0 here. But I really enjoyed 0. The train setting was really interesting, really well executed. This new and unique for the series mechanic of having 2 characters that you control was very interesting and done very well, in my opinion. Most Resident Evil games have some kind of save box system where you can put in stuff in a box and then in another place you find another box and you can access your stuff, whatever. This game didn't have that at all. Instead, you had to drop your items in a safe room and then you could come back to them and whatever. Many people didn't like it, but I didn't mind it. I felt it worked. I felt they made it work in this game. I don't know, I feel like it gets too much hate. Like, the Resident Evil community at large feels like they just don't like this one very much, and I hard disagree. It was very good for what it is, in my opinion. I liked it a lot. And then Umbrella Corps, which I actually played on stream. I played the single-player campaign, which yes does exist on stream. I thought it would be a fun, shitty time with a random trash game. But holy shit was it bad. It was fun at first. It was trashy fun at first, for like the first 30, maybe 60 minutes. Maybe even less, I genuinely don't even remember. But the game was like 5 hours long, I think. Let me check. 5.8 on stream, so realistically playtime maybe 5, maybe a little less. So let's say 5 hours. Those were some of the worst like 4 or so hours I've had on stream, with like a fun, trashy start. This game is atrocious. And I honestly just played it for my Resident Evil bucket list. And most of these are still on my bucket list, because this one, for example, is just the Mercenaries mode. It's like a challenge mode, you know, survive this many waves, whatever. Don't care, so I'm not even gonna bother with this one, for example. But most of these are still on my bucket list. Especially the 2 Outbreak games, since again, these 2 are classic survival horror style games, like the first 3, like Zero, like Code Veronica. I still really want to play these. But yeah, this is my Resident Evil tier list my personal Resident Evil tier list, the objectively correct one. And by the way, fun fact, I actually played most of these on stream. I played some of these also off stream before I played them on stream, like Resident Evil 7. My first playthrough was before I even started to stream, honestly. But I did then at some point end up playing all of them on stream. Wait, I just now realized, wait, where is Resident Evil Revelations 2? Is that what this one is? Is this Revelations 2? If so, completely forgot about that thing, because Revelations 2 is very forgettable. I'm gonna use this as a stand-in, because I genuinely don't know what this is supposed to be. Revelations 2 is very forgettable, and sadly is the only Resident Evil game without a memorable set piece. Again, all of these have some kind of memorable set piece, even if it's not even in the game for that long. Like Resident Evil 0, the train is only like the first hour or so of the game, of like a, what, like 8-9 hour game, you know? But it's still incredibly memorable. Revelations 2 doesn't have a memorable set piece, sadly, but the game itself is very fun, and I actually like it a lot. I would probably put it here. It's just a shame that it's just very forgettable, sadly. But while playing it, in both of my playthroughs, I think I played through it twice, in both of my playthroughs, I enjoyed it very much. It's just that, yeah, it's very forgettable, sadly. So yeah, I've played 4 Remake, 2 Remake, 7, 1 Code Veronica, 7, 4, Revelations 2, 0, 2, 3, 1 Revelations. All of these I played on stream. 3 Remake and Umbrella Corps as well. So I played all of these on stream, so only 5 of these games I never played on stream. And 2 of them aren't even single player. So that's kind of crazy to think about. And let me actually save the image. Let me actually create a new tier I haven't played, just so all of them are there. So I'm just putting all of these into haven't played. And there we go. That is the correct Resident Evil tier list. I'll post it to my Discord as well.